Good evening, ladies, and welcome to LOL. Thank you for joining me this evening. I have, what, three guests with me this evening. I have Marty, Lori, and Sam, and we are going to be talking about I'm 50, now what? So before we get started in that conversation, let me do the housekeeping. Let me ask you guys to subscribe. It helps the podcast to grow and puts me in a situation where we can get support and better technology and sponsors and more guests, all of that good stuff. And if you would like to support me, Rena, at LOL Living Out Loud podcast, you can do so on Ko-fi.com Living Out Loud. So let me just tell you how that works. Ko-fi, Kofi.com/living out loud. And you can just buy me a cup of coffee on the site. And that will help me take care of little incidentals I need to take care of. So with all of that being said, let's get started. So ladies, I went on a search, as I was telling you before I hit record, and tried to find some books and some blogs and some, anything. YouTubers that really talked about the essence, the spiritual part, the wholeness of turning 50 as a woman. And then specifically, because I can only talk from my context as you all, and turning 50 being a Black woman. I couldn't find anything, and I wanted to find a poem or something to read to give us a jump off point to begin this conversation. So I wrote this. I'm going to read it, and then after I finish reading it, feel free to jump in where you feel it. Unedited conversation. Oh yeah. And Lori, our guest, I want to thank her for the idea. This is the footnote. I am 50, now what? Great idea. That actually would have worked really well, season 1, episode 1. But we're getting it in the makings of us because 50 is part of what makes us who we are as women over 50. So here I go. I am 50. Now what? As I have hit each of the milestones labeled by age, 13, 16, 21, 25, 30, 40, 45, I approach the half-century mark with trepidation, with concern, with celebration, with contemplation, in observation, with grateful musings, and with interrogation. So much has occurred to me, starting with why is this milestone shrouded in and with great mystery to me? In me, to me, from me, yep, preposition after preposition. What is 50 all about? Most importantly, what am I all about at 50? What is expected of me? What do I expect of myself? As a Black woman, it is not lost on me that I now have 3 isms against me. I'm Black, I'm woman, and I'm 50. I live in a culture where my currency is not what it once was. And no, it never garnered the full valuation of the dollar in the first place, more like 58 cents. There was definitely a time when the external defined me and even shaped who I was and wanted to be. I found that with experience and accomplishments, with failures and with losses that I thought were insurmountable, I have received the gift and the freedom of a little more boldness to say, to hell with what others think of me. I'm going to do me. There it is. Did you hear it? The oversimplification of the answer to the question. I'm 50. Now what? The earlier milestones were steeped in my formation, growing up, school, education, traditional or non-traditional, career, employment, children, marriage, divorce, relationships, and experiences accompanied by the surprise that life brings. They formed me and informed who I be. Sometimes chiseling away and sometimes building up, but nonetheless shaping. If I have been fearless enough to concern myself with doing the work, the who, what, and why of me, then I should enter 50 at least knowing what I do not want, what I will not tolerate, what I will not sacrifice, and what I will not compromise. If I've done the work, then I get to dream anew without allowing the external noise to silence my dreams. I get to be sassy and answer Langston Hughes' question of what happens to a dream deferred. And I say, I'm not deferring a damn thing. I'm all about trying to make them dreams come true.
Well,
if I have done the work, then my 50s will allow me to accept me, love me, forgive me, pamper me, and challenge all my fears, which are simply shadows, yea, though I walk through the valley. I am 50, now what? My ladder will be greater because I'm wiser, I'm stronger, I'm more capable. I am enough to become, try, explore, pray, ask, dream of anything that I want, because at 50 plus, I give myself permission to do me.
Amen.
There we go.
Powerful.
Like that.
That's
Yeah.
powerful.
you just wrote that today?
Yeah, about an hour ago.
Go ahead, girl.
Start anything.
Go ahead.
Snapping in a circle. Okay.
So that was what I thought about, when I thought about I'm 50 now what? It just means a point for me to start all over, but bolder. This time I'm not starting off as a little girl being formed. I'm formed now. I'm shaped. And now I can really do the work. So y'all, let me hear what you got to say.
I agree with that. I think I mentioned to you, Serena, before, is that when I hit 50 last year, it was like, and I swear, it was like a light switch just went off. It was just like, okay, you're no longer younger. You're not young anymore, but you're not old. You're right in the middle. You have to look at your life differently. Like when it comes to, we kind of look at it from two perspectives. From a professional standpoint, like what am I going to do in terms of work? And then personally, like what's my goals? What's my purpose now? It's different than when it was 20, 30 years ago. So like you said, it is like this self-discovery of, okay, this is new. Now, what do I do? How do I navigate this now? And then for me to be 51 now, Black woman, single, no children. That's the other thing I think about. As I get older, who's going to take care of me? Like, I didn't think about that in my 40s. In my 50s, it's like, I don't know what it is, but now I think about that going forward. We're now living longer. So therefore, we have to think about, I may become a centenarian. How is that going to look for me? Who's going to take care of me? Not to say that I won't get married down the road or whatever, but I mean, online dating, that's another conversation. But yeah. I think about my life right now, and it's like, because let's face it, we have our own challenges as Black women at 50. We do. And to me, it's like we're that sandwich generation like they talk about. It's like they know our value, but it's not talked about. It's like, okay, Black women are strong and do your thing. We're not going to talk about it, but we know you're there, and that's really what it seems like. It's like, I don't see things that speak to me right now as a 50-year-old Black woman. They'll talk about Black women in general, but not particularly to us. So that's been my experience with it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question before Sam jumps in. You gave me the idea, I'm 50, now what? So you are a whole year into 50.
Yep.
So what's been your now what? What is different about 49? So what?
You know what, I don't know what it is, but it's just that when I was 49, and this was obviously 2 years ago, I was in a different mindset because my mom was living with me. She had Alzheimer's, and I made the decision to have her cared for in my home for like 10 years. And she passed away 2 years ago. And my mindset was different. I really didn't think about myself going forward. I didn't think about 50 coming forward. I just felt like I'm 49 years old, taking care of my mom. My life is the way that it is. And that's just that. when you are no longer a caregiver, it's like you have to prepare for that. And I never thought that I had to. I just thought, okay, well, my mom goes on to glory. There'll be this light, this awakening of, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And that didn't happen. I'm still going, now what? Now what? Now what? And I realized that I simply have to do the work. I simply have to sit down and say, okay, Lori, you're 50. Who am I? What's my next step? What are my interests? Because it's like what I did 10, 20 years ago, it's like, okay, that was done. Now it's new. It's going forward. What do you want to do? What are your interests? So that's where I am now, is like doing the work. But I just never thought that at 50, it would be this awakening. I really didn't. I wasn't prepared for that.
Okay, Sammy, you were going to say?
Well, no, she had Miss Lori had made a comment about people talking about Black women as a whole, and you said something about us being in the middle. We're not young, but we're not old. But because we are the age that we are, sometimes I think a man will be very, how could I put it? Like they don't want the challenge of a Black strong woman that knows, that have this awakening that you have, because it's too much work.
Right.
They would prefer somebody that was much easier and not call them on their stuff.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Oh my God.
So it's almost like we're in the middle.
Yep.
Also, we're not young, we're not old. We're trying to find ourselves. We know what we like, we know what we don't like, or at least we're trying to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
And for they'll say, "Oh, nope, not you."
So Sammy, you've turned 50 now, and you're in your 50 years, like the LOL audience in general. So what 50? What did turning 50 and being in your 50s, what does it mean to you? What is it about?
When I first turned 50, it'd be 4 years on Saturday. I'll be 54 on Saturday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I was stupid at 50.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, it was something wrong with me. I didn't think I was, my mind hadn't changed. I don't know. My awakening came probably about at 52.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you go through things in life, sometimes things just click. If you go through a trauma or drama, or because you're learning about yourself and you're knowing what you don't want anymore or what you don't like. So it clicked for me at 52. So I'm at 54. Right now, I'm studying for my CPA. I don't have a strong mind. Look, I wish I had done this many, many years ago when my mind was young and spry and I didn't say, "Where's my cell phone?" and it's in my hand.
I do that. Don't tell all our secrets.
Where's my glasses?
Glasses on your face.
I wish I had, started that process before, but I didn't know. And so Valerie knows this story. I didn't even know I qualified to sit for the CPA. It was just by chance I came over to Valerie's house and somebody, a young lady named Jessica, was studying. And she said, I said, "What are you studying for?" She said she's studying for a CPA. I said, "Oh, I never wanted to do that." She was like, "Why not? You should see if you qualify. Me and you can study together," because she had more classes to take. I didn't know where I stood. And I said, "You know what? I'm going to see where I stand." And when I called the people that I was supposed to call and filled out the paperwork, I had enough credit to sit. I bypassed her.
Yep.
She had to go back to school. I don't have to go back to school. I got 2 classes to take, but they're electives. But I can sit, I have enough accounting courses to sit for the CPA. So it's by chance. And so I believe that nothing happens by chance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my
So
God.
Marty, here you go. You're 50, now what? So what? What was it about? What does it mean to you? Any way you want to approach it.
Whew, Lord. 50. 50 has been, and 50 plus, headed towards the middle of 50. In very few short months. And it's just, I look back and say, what happened to my life? Where did it go? It kind of went by in a flash. And I was so busy doing and partying and having a good time and enjoying that I never thought about 50. I never thought what it would mean. So 50 kind of caught me by surprise because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a half century old. And so, Miss Lori, you were talking about, you got, you're not quite young, you're not quite old, but I don't know if I have 50 more years. I mean, I feel like I have more years behind me than in front of me. And so I'm looking at it in a lot of similar ways than you, because I don't have any children, and so I'm looking back over my life and thinking some things over. And like, wow. Okay, the song, right? When I look back over my life.
Yes.
And truly I'm looking at and I'm looking at it with a sometimes regret, because I'm like, wow, shoulda, coulda, woulda. I'm kind of looking at it from that lens. And now I'm saying, okay, sis, it's now time to ramp up the plan B and C. Okay, because I changed careers in my late 40s. And I came to that realization. And I will tell you what brought me to that realization was the death of one of my parents. So that kind of put me on this path to saying, wait a minute, life is short.
Right.
And if I don't have, and because thinking in terms of your mortality, because that's what it does. And 50 kind of did that. It took it even further. I thought about my mortality, and I thought about the time that I have left on this earth, and what am I going to do with it? And I turned it to saying, I need to be purposeful. I know I don't have a husband at this particular point. I don't have any children, but I must still live. I must still plan. My life is not over. My life is not insignificant because I don't measure up to society standards. So I have to continue to make my life meaningful and purposeful. So that's what I've been doing. I've been ensuring that I'm being purposeful and meaningful and intentional with whatever decisions and different things that I make. Every move I make, it is not without thought, reflection, and contemplation. And I've taught myself, thank you, Jesus, through the grace of God,
Yes,
how to look the situation all the way through to the end before I do make situations. And that I did not have that insight before 50. So I'm grateful. Let me just tell you, aging is something that is not granted to everybody. We are seeing with this latest thing of COVID, just how short life can be. And you may think you make a plan one way and God laughs at your plans and another thing happens. So I'm really learning to flow. I'm learning to flow in 50. I'm learning to flow with what happens. And I'm saying, okay, readjust this. Okay, it didn't work out this way. So now, boom, you got to do X, Y, and Z. But I will tell you, I do have some regrets when I look back on certain things, especially like I say with the marriage thing. I'm like, wow, am I going to be by myself for the rest of my life? And there are some days when I'm extremely content with that. And then there are some days when I'm not. So, like you were saying, understanding what your live withs and live withouts are is very important after 50. So I realized that I know that I can, if I have to do this by myself, I can. And it's a wonderful thing to know that I can. But the thing is, do I want to? And so that's the thing that I grapple with at 50. It's just knowing where I am. So I just try to stay with it day by day and not allow myself to go too far ahead, because that's not promise. So I'm learning to flow within the moment.
Now,
love that.
I think that it's interesting because all of us have some commonalities in how we approached 50 and what we feel what 50 is.
Mhm.
And remember, I told you I couldn't find any information on I'm 50 now what. But when we hit 60, sisters are talking at 60. I think that women, in particular African American women, and then I'm going to say Black, because when I say Black, I mean all women from the diaspora of African women, struggle a little bit about still being real, taking off the mask in the 50s. Perhaps we have not accomplished that yet. LOL is about that. For me, I wrote that thing that was poetic for everybody, but for me, I, as Marty and Sammy know, and Lori, I told you, I lost my mother when I was 46. So a few months before I finished my doctorate. But the last 6 months, only 6 months of my mother's life, I heard her ask herself the question over and over again, and Marty knows this is part of Maslow hierarchy. Did my life have purpose? Did I do what I was supposed to do? She was very concerned that her life was not done in vain, which is what Marty was saying. I now, remembering my mother say that every day, for the last 6 months of her life, am trying to move everything out of my way that stops me from living on purpose. So like Marty said, everything I do now, my father used to say, y'all, this is true. I've tested it. Every time you make a big mistake, so tell your children this if you have children, it takes 7 years to recover from that. I don't have 7 years to recover from mistakes anymore. I'm 50. I'll be 62 if I make a huge mistake. Huge mistakes at 55 should not be happening because I should have the wisdom to seek information, to seek my elders, to not be arrogant and cocky and all of that stuff. So like Marty said, I'm intentional and I'm purposeful about everything that I want to do and even try to do. And I'm trying to move the things out of the way that stop me from doing that, like low self-esteem, which I truly suffered from, which, that ended me up in a very abusive relationship. Low self-esteem, that was when I got heavy, super fat, is what I was called, and all the names that I would be called. Just a number of things that we live with that make us, being divorced twice. And dating, we talked about dating a little bit, and you go into the dating world and a man says, so have you been married before? And you say, you're thinking about it. Let me tell you ahead of time, you already figured out how you're going to answer this. Right. You're going to just go with the first one. How real am I going? Yes, I've been married before. Now, if you don't ask me how many times, that's how many times have you been married? Twice. Immediate, because we do it too. We start formulating opinion. So I'm learning to move remember that what I wrote in that thing? I'm learning to not give a damn about what anybody thinks about me. And so that when I get 60, I can really be ferocious because, that's quickly coming. And we have role models to look at now in their 60s who've got it going on. Black women that are out there. Like Oprah, dislike Oprah. She's still bad. Angela Bassett. Debbie from, what's her name? Debbie Morgan, right? That was from, she lives in this area and we see her often. She hangs out often. We see her. Yeah. But these women we get to see bold, out loud, unapologetically, being 60 plus. And I want to be that. I want to be able to do that. And so that lets me know, I think, who was it that says, oh, Lori, I need to do the work. The work that talks about who you are, guys, hopefully we've started doing that in our 40s. But if not, you've got to get busy and get that work done, or you won't be able to move forward. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think for me also, like I've been doing the work and I'm really proud of it. I also worry about getting too comfortable, like, well, this is comfortable. I don't want to try anything new. That's another thing that I have to kind of like check myself on. It's like, I'm very content in my life. I love my life. I'm content. But at the same time, I wonder to myself, am I too comfortable in it? That's another thing that I think about, because it's like, I always think to myself, I should be doing this. I should be doing this. I should be doing this. And I'll admit there are moments where I kind of will base my life on what someone else is doing at 50. you know, and I realize it's different, but I just always want to make sure that I'm not getting comfortable and then staying in my own little, you know, my own little circle. I want to be exploring and I want to be true to myself, but I don't want to get too comfortable.
But Valerie, you made a statement about oh my goodness, I just lost that thought.
See, that's living out loud. You just forget stuff.
No, you said something about faces that, you know, people put on, you know, in their 50s, right?
I wear the mask.
Yeah. But do you think, I think, well, what I think is a lot of times when women reach 50 or are approaching 50, they still try to hold on to their youth. They like they'll say 50 is the new 30. Like that's
why would you even want to be
like that, like 50 is the new 40, like that's attractive. And I think that we still can't be honest with ourselves, I guess, because some of us are just trying to live a lie.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to be honest with yourself if you're living a lie outside yourself. When you look in the mirror, that's the only face that you see.
Is it though? Is it really? Is it really the only face that you see?
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's why a lot of women are focused on having this great body at 50. That's the 50, the new 30 thing, the new 40 thing. And when you think about it, I'm going to ask y'all honestly, you can't know what you know now. Would you want to be 30 again?
No, I know.
I don't.
Oh my
You
God.
can't know what you know now.
I was very stupid at 30. Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm telling you now, I don't care who you are. Mm-hmm. No. Because you didn't, I mean, when I went into a classroom, when I was teaching, I would go into a classroom and young people were teaching in their late 20s and 30s. They would be teaching, right? And I could run circles around them, and I knew it. And I like the confidence that knowing I can out-teach you any day of the week because I had a life experience. They're like, but the book says, but there's 45 kids in your classroom that don't come out of that book. They're coming from broken homes. They didn't eat this morning. They're on the 3rd grade level. We're teaching the 10th grade. Now what? And the 21, 22, 23-year-olds coming out of college didn't know what to do with it. So do you really want to go back and be young again?
Well, Miss Marty was trying to say something like she was in thought about that.
I'm in thought about that only because if I go back in time, my loved ones will be back. And so that's where it becomes, I'm ambivalent. Because at 30, I will tell you, my entire family was alive.
Mine too.
And now 90% of my family is gone. So yeah. So for that reason, that would be the reason why I would chance going back to 30 and take my chance that the Lord will still cover me in my stupidity, because I was in the club at 30. I can't even front.
I was.
Because my mom passed away a couple of years ago. Like my mom was like, oh my gosh, she was my everything.
Exactly.
And I had her at 30. And it's like, I really relied upon my mom. I leaned on my mom in my 30s. Like I talked to my mom every day when I was 30 years old. And then it's like when I hit 50 and she was no longer here, it was like all of a sudden I became a real adult at 50.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really did. And it's like, okay, now I'm alone. And at 30, I didn't have that. I had a lot of people, like you said, to lean on, my mom, my grandmother. And now it's like, okay, they gave you these lessons and they taught you and they raised you. Now you're an adult now. This is where you are. You're now this 50-year-old woman, but you have this wisdom and this knowledge that they gave you. But I agree with you on it. If I could go back to 30, that's the only way I would want to go back to 30 is to have my family back. Absolutely.
So Val, to your point, no, for no other reason, because I don't want to go through those same experiences again that I went through. But for, you know, just for the fact that would bring folks back, you know, but I agree with you. No, I mean, mentally, physically, I was in the best shape of my entire life. I had my body, things stood up, and, you know, I didn't have to work out, and, you know, I was young, my metabolism was fast. I was always on the move, you know, so for those things, but no, as far as my knowledge, and what I know now. And there was a point I was going to make. Good grief, this 50, now what? Yeah, now what? Now what was I thinking? You know, what was I going to say? You know, those kind of things. That's the other part of the now what. But you know, but the life lessons and what, to your point, Lori, is the fact that the mantle has been passed to us.
Yes.
We are
Yes.
the mature folks now, and we have to be the ones that people rely on, because you know, in my family, yes, I still am blessed to have my mom and my grandmother, but they come to me. So it's like, oh Lord, I got to have the answers now. You know, this is what it felt like to be a parent, you know, kind of thing. So I'm kind of like the Dagwood sandwich generation, right? I got two above me, and then the nieces and the nephews below me who are calling upon me, because they feel like, because I am a therapist, that I have all the answers. So it's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of unseen pressure. So being the 50, so now what? It's like, now what? How am I going to juggle all this responsibility?
Exactly.
You know?
I've got to piggyback on something that you said, Marty, and Lori talked about too, because I'm going to ask Sam.
Okay.
Sam, myself, and Lori don't have our mothers.
Yeah.
You and I, Marty, don't have our fathers.
Right.
Neither Sam. Lori, I don't know where you are there. So I'm technically an orphan. Sam, orphan? No mother or father. Okay. So going back to 30, was your mother still with you at 30?
Who are you talking to?
You, Sammy.
Yes.
So if you could go back to 30 and your mother still be alive, would you want to go back then?
Yeah. I mean, my mother was my best friend, and my mother passed away at the age of 52. So she had me at 15. So when I was 30, she was only 45. And I had another 7 years with her.
Wow.
But yes, I'm 52. Yeah.
That's young.
I thought about that when I was writing my thing. So I thought about whether I was going to put, so I found a meme that was really good. And it said, it's impossible to bury your mother, not talking about your father. It's impossible to bury your mother and not bury yourself. And when you bury yourself, you become resurrected. You become brand new, right? So I was thinking about it while you were talking, trying not to get all teary-eyed. And this is what I come to. Part of what makes me who I am today, the makings of me, is the absence of my mother. I'm a grown-ass woman because my mother's not here.
That's true.
Right.
And part of that journey, it happened the way my mother would have wanted to happen. God forbid she would have had to bury me, right? So in Maya Angelou's words, I still wouldn't take nothing from my traveling shoes. My mother's death and the absence of my father died when I was 50. It's part of the shaping of me. So if I went back and changed any of it, I'm assuming, and I believe that God knew best for my life. And that is the only reason. Now, if I could pull my parents out of the sky and talk to them and sit them up whenever I want to, I'd be really glad. But I'm gonna tell you now, my father would be like, if you don't leave me alone, because I'm in heaven. Daughter, I'll see you later. I mean, we couldn't wait to get there. But I thought about it. I really thought about it when I was writing. And I had to honestly say, who I am now at 55 has a lot to do with who I had to become in my mother's absence. I don't know if it would have been like, had I lost my father first, Marty, like you. I don't know. It's a loss. It's not one greater than the other. It's just a very different loss.
It is very different. Very different.
Which comes, it's actually, we can divide this up. I'll put that in there too, which makes a whole nother conversation about entering 50 in the absence of your mother or parents. And, so that's part of 50 too. Now mom and dad are gone, or you're having to care for mom and dad.
Yes.
Who are you now? You're not just now a sister or a wife or a girlfriend. Now you're a caretaker, or now you're a person who, when you meet people, you guys met brothers in the dating world, and they say, is your mother and father still alive? That's a conversation that we have dating now. When we were 30 in our 20s, we didn't even ask each other,
Right.
"Is mom and dad alive?" I mean, was that a question? And if it was for the unlikely that they had lost a parent, it's shocking to us. And we don't even know what to say to that. 50.
Yeah.
50 comes with some good stuff and some bad stuff. But I'm going to ask a question based on something Lori said, or make a statement. You guys respond. She said that she doesn't want to get content. In a comfortable, content. Sam and I talk about this at her job now. You don't want to be content. And I would say, you have something in your spirit that tells you when it's time to move. And if you don't move, the eagle's nest will get stirred. I mean, God will stir your nest and make it so uncomfortable, he'll knock you out of the nest. So with all that being said, are you guys concerned about getting content and afraid to take a step in another direction, an unfamiliar direction? Because we get to renew our lives now. We're 50. We can do whatever we want.
Well, I think for me, I'm taking a step in another direction.
You sure are.
Yeah, I'm taking that step in another direction. I believe that God gave me the job that I have, and I'm supposed to do something while I'm there. And I guess once I become obedient to God, maybe he'll let me move on. Because I just get so angry. I have an anger problem. I thought that I had my anger under control, but obviously not. My phone rings and I'm like livid. It's somebody from my job. It's a terrible thing. So, but I am doing something. I'm doing something different. I'm stepping out there. I'm studying for this CPA, and so that's something different. Are you scared? Am I scared?
Mm-hmm.
You know what my problem is? You know, I'm hard on myself with everything. So I'm afraid of failure. Mm-hmm. Even though I can take that test and pay for it over and over. We have so many, the CPA is the hardest test ever. And I have a group, a mentor group, and it's people that have taken, it's 4 parts. It's people that have taken one part 12 times. I mean, so, and they paid $200 12 times for that one part. Each part is $210. So, but for me, because I'm so hard on myself, I'm afraid.
Okay. Marty.
Well, so let me go back to the word contentment. Mm-hmm. I think contentment means something different to everyone. For me, contentment is I need to rest after I've achieved something. I do need that moment to kind of absorb it. And like I say, this is 50 for me. I need that moment to absorb it all in because, when you're younger, you're just moving and moving and moving and moving, and you're not taking time to process through things. So now I'm more deliberate about what I'm processing, and I want to process the experience. I want to be present for the experience and for the celebration. I think we as Black women, we're so afraid to celebrate ourselves when we achieve something or when we make a good decision about, like even Sam, you making that decision to even take that step and then putting the step into action. That is worth celebration. We don't allow ourselves to celebrate ourselves because we're so busy looking for the next thing. And so I'm really learning to take time to smell the roses where I am. So yeah, it's okay if I'm content for a little while. I know that sooner or later I'll be ready to move forward when it
Are you afraid to move forward into something new?
Absolutely. I feel like, and Sam, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. And Lori, you might already know this, and certainly Val, you're familiar with this. No, because I took that step before I turned 50.
Yes, you did.
I stepped out on faith after a 30-something year career doing something. I changed. So I was, and I will tell you, now I'm afraid not to do it. So therefore, so I know that, no, I'm not afraid to take a step forward. Yes. Do I have some anxiety? Absolutely. I'd be lying if I say I didn't, but I'm afraid not to. My biggest anxiety is if I don't take that step, how does that change my path? How does that change what God has for me? I can't realize everything he has for me if I'm not following the path. Right. So, I consider it when you do make a change, if you feel compelled to make that change and things line up and you trust, again, After 50, my faith is different. My
Mm.
faith is different.
We coming there next. That's
My belief,
30
okay.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I'm sorry. My belief is different. My
Mhm.
experience are different. I now have my own experiences. I'm not going off of mamas and daddies and grandmamas and everybody else's experiences.
Right, right.
I've had a chance to experience them for myself. So I know certain things for myself. And the Lord has taught me. And I go back to him not being super spiritual, but I am a spiritual person. I am a believer. I believe that God orders my steps and he lines things up for me. He just puts them in place. When I put my faith in him, the more faith that I put in him, first of all, the less I have to worry about.
Well,
And the more things start to line up, they just fall into place. So I trust him
amen.
to have my back like that.
Amen.
And that, I don't trust anybody else like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll come back to that part. The
Yeah,
next part of
so
that.
that's in my next note. So I'm going to ask Lori the same question. Lori.
You know, I think for me, you know, and as Marty, it's really interesting that you say that because it's like now I have sat down and I know what my goals are going forward. I think what I struggle with is time frame. For years as being a caregiver for my mom, everything was structured, scheduled. Got up at 8 o'clock, this is what you do, 9 o'clock, 10, blah, 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 blah. It was like that in my professional life, in my personal life. I ran on a schedule, a timetable. So now that I'm 50 and I know what my goals are going forward, I just have it in my mind, okay, I got to start working. I got to be working on it nonstop. When I have a moment, when I'm just like relaxing, I have moments of feeling a little guilty. Like you should be doing something. Go in there and go, you know, work on this book that you wanted to finish. You know, that's always going in my head of, okay, this is what the plan is. Why aren't you working on it? So that's what I struggle with from time to time is that guilt of enjoying my accomplishments, my goals. I know what I got to do. I know what my goals are. They haven't changed going forward. It's just simply when I'm not, like, for example, there's a book that I've been writing for the past 5 years and I'll work on it and I'll put it aside and I'll work on it and I'll put it aside. And the reason why is because when I'm paid to do, because I'm a copywriter. So when I'm paid to write, I write. I'll write for a client all day long. When it comes to myself, I'm like, well, come on, you should be working on something else. So that's my struggle, but I know what I need to be doing. I know what my goal is. It's just struggling with that whole, like you said, enjoying those moments where it's like, I accomplished something. I should spend time in this moment and enjoy it.
Mm.
So I'm going to talk to you guys about, go ahead, Marty. Go ahead.
Can I say something to Lori?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put my therapist hat on for a second. And I'm going to say maybe the copywriter needs a copywriter, just like a therapist needs a therapist.
Right.
Just food for thought.
Right.
Change your strategy.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Good point.
I'm going to talk to you guys about the 2 F's. 50s, the 2 F's. Failure and faith. Let's go with failure first so that we don't talk about them interchangeably. Failure. Sam, do what you want with the word.
Well, I believe that I guess failure would be a definition for all of us, a different definition for all of us. I just said that I was afraid of failure, which I meant failing the test. But I don't give myself enough grace. So for me, I just don't give myself enough grace because if I fail that test, I can take it again. I don't give myself enough grace. If I fail any part, I can take it again.
So what is failing? What would it mean to fail to you?
I think because
what would it say about you, to you?
To me, I mean, you're looking at, well, most people don't know this about me, but if I do anything, I try to do it as perfect as I can.
She's a real Virgo.
It's really sad, and I'll give you a prime example. Just something as little as background vocals for the church. If I have a little mistake in the middle, the back, the end, I'll delete that whole thing until I get a whole run with no mistakes in it. And that's ridiculous when I could just record a couple of more times and send those. So So for me, like if I do someone's taxes, I make sure that I try to find every loophole. And I don't know what that is about me. When I was a beautician, your hair had to be perfect. I had to think that your hair was perfect. You could have said, "Oh, that look, no, I don't like." So, and I think for me, it would mean that I didn't try my best, that it was something better for me to do.
Is
and
it
I
possible? I'm curious. So I'm just asking because, we have failure and pursuing excellence. We should always pursue excellence, right?
Yeah,
but then we have failure.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I almost forgot what I was going to ask you, but see, it's my turn, right? I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask you this. If you were to fail at something and you did your very best, what does that mean to you? What does that say about you? What are you hearing in your head? We can fail and do our very damn best.
I guess I would find some type of way to say that I didn't do my best. That's why I failed.
That the therapist has to have a response. I got nothing. So I'm going with you.
Can I say, so I will say this, Sam, with that, there is a thing called perfectionism. And it actually is a thing that prohibits you from almost moving forward because you're so busy focused on the tasks involved instead of the journey involved with accomplishing the tasks.
That'll preach.
You need to write that down and send it to me, Val.
Right.
Yeah, write that down and text it to me because I need to read that every day.
Okay, because there is a lesson that God wants you to know through this thing that you're going through this journey in CPA, whatever it is. There is a lesson in every step that we have to take. There is a lesson in that journey that we have to go through. So if you don't, and I'm kind of getting into my own answer, so I will segue into my own answer in a little bit, but if you don't fail sometimes, or if you don't succeed in everything, how would you know to enjoy the successes?
I don't enjoy the successes. I never do. I never revel in the moment. It's almost as if I don't have time to. Again, I'm moving on to the next thing. So I never say, oh, that was, you can rest now. I never do that. Because again, now I'm 50 plus. I ain't got much time. I need to, and I believe, now listen, I believe I'm going to live to be 100.
Well, you got some time then.
But how will my mind be when I get there? I ain't got time.
You're going to have a good mind.
But so I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to enjoy the ride, enjoy the moment. I don't know how to do that.
So and maybe this is the purpose of this journey. Maybe it's to teach you how to enjoy the moments, because you got 4 opportunities to learn how to enjoy the moment and celebrate that accomplishment. But it's based on your willingness and your openness. So maybe you work on that first, your willingness and your openness.
Yeah, because even with studying right now, I've gone through the book. I'm going to go through the book again. And I take my test in September. What's this month? August. I take my test in September. I'm thinking about pushing it back again. I'm thinking about it. I am.
We're going to help you with that.
Yeah.
No, because I'm so hard on myself. I don't know what that is. I don't know when that switched. I think I've always been that way. Hard on myself. Have that attitude that if I don't do it, it won't get done correctly kind of crap. Yeah.
I don't think it's crap though. I think it comes and it's born out of your childhood and your young adulthood. You probably had to do it.
Well, the reason why I call it crap is because now I can tell somebody else to do it, but I will still do it. because I want it to be done right. I don't want to have to repeat myself. I don't want to have to go into teaching you how to do it. I don't want to do any of that. I would prefer to go ahead and do it. And it's the same thing at my job.
So you want somebody to do it the way you would do it.
Maybe it's a control thing.
Well, it's a perfectionism thing.
It's perfectionism, which is control.
It's control.
But the joke of all of it, I made a joke, and she's a true Virgo. One of the traits of a Virgo, if you believe in astrology at all, is they are known to be perfectionists. And she's, Maria is much like you, and she's a perfectionist.
Well, some parts is like me, not all the parts.
So Marty, trail into failure.
Okay, so failure. I am thankful for some of my failures. I'm grateful because the first thing my parents taught me how to fail, which a lot of parents don't teach their children nowadays. They teach, oh, everyone is wonderful. Everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah.
Everybody gets this and that. My parents taught me, look, there's a winner and there's a loser. Which side are you going to be on? Are you going to be on the winning side or the losing side? And if you lose, that means it's time for you to go back and it's time for you to do something different. If what you're doing right now is not working and it didn't work for you, then that means it's time for you to change your strategy. It's time for you to do something.
Wait a minute, Miss Marty, can you put a pin on that? Because I just had a flashback. So
Okay.
I was aggressive as a child and always had to win. And when I lost, it hurt me so bad. And I'll give you a prime example. I went to, you remember how they used to have those little carnivals that pop up everywhere?
Yeah.
And I was playing this game where you had to throw a ball in a barrel. And if it stayed in there and not pop out, like if you gave $6, you win $12. If you give $12, so whatever you gave, it doubled your money. Now, this is the first time I ever repeated this in my life, so it probably was traumatizing for me. But I think I lost like $150 that day.
And didn't know you were set up to lose? You were supposed to lose.
But I have an addictive personality, and I'm going to.
Or Marty, is that just another example of perfectionism?
It all falls within that same thing. It's perfectionism, compulsivity. That all falls into the same thing. That all falls under the umbrella of perfectionism. The need to excel. The need to excel at everything. And so what happens is, and usually the treatment, well, some of the interventions for that would be to deal with realism, deal with the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that we are not going to succeed at everything that we do. We have to normalize failure to the extent of we put it in a different perspective. It's how you view. And usually our views come from our childhood.
How do you normalize that though?
Well, you normalize it because everyone doesn't succeed. Let's just say we got a person. Let's take our upcoming election, not from the political standpoint, but let's take our upcoming election. There is going to be a clear winner and a clear loser. So the person who's losing, just like our sister Hillary, when she left, when she lost, she had to do some reevaluation. Yeah. She had to do some contemplation. She had to re-strategize. She had to reset, reboot, recharge. This is the reason why you have to allow yourself and give yourself that time to reboot between the next time you got to rev it up and get back in the game, because you got to evaluate, what did I just do? What just happened? How did it work for me? Did it work well or did it not work well? Because when you continue to just push through like us Black women have been programmed to do, which is killing us, the strong Black woman, it's killing us. We don't take the time to absorb and process through, did this really work? You know, and you have to really find out what works for you. You're not the person that you were even yesterday, Val. I don't mean to hijack this thing from you, but you're not the person that you were even yesterday. You are not the person that you were last week. You are, in Michelle Obama's words, becoming. So now what worked for you when you were younger may not work for you after 50.
Right.
So it's time for you to start re-strategizing, rethinking what really works for me with who I am now. I still want to succeed, and there is a way. Just understand there's more than one pathway to get to where you need to go. It's
Yeah.
not cut and dry. This is where I say opening up yourself to other possibilities and other strategies is going to be, that would be the intervention that I would use on you if I were counseling you.
I was going to say, how much
I
you
need
charge, girl?
Right.
Tammy, whenever I need counseling, I call Marty.
Right?
Because
He's
I'm
like, girl,
telling
I'm
you,
getting
first
on the
of all,
couch.
you're peeling through a whole bunch of layers.
Yeah.
Really, because but yeah, failure is not an option.
And
Marty,
so
you were saying you were taught how to fail.
So I was taught how to fail because my parents said, and they were from that old, you talking about pick yourself back by your bootstraps. My parents gave me clear-cut ways to do it. Okay, so if you took road A and road A didn't work for you, why are you going back down road A? You need to go down road B. What is road B? Well, you're going to have to make it up as you go along. And sometimes you got to make up a road C or plan C, and then you got to make it a mishmash of all plan A, plan B, and plan C sometimes. It's being able to adapt and adjust. And this is what is going to keep us. And obviously you didn't make it to this year, 54, by only doing it one way.
No,
You had to make adjustments.
I've had plan A's and B's and C's, but do you understand that if A didn't work and I did B, that wasn't considered as failure to me?
Well, okay, so again,
as long as what I did worked.
Well, this is why I say it's different for everybody else. The definition differs based on the individual you're talking to and how you view it. For me, if plan A didn't work, plan A failed.
Oh.
Me too.
So now
That's
I
how
got
I
to
see
plan
it.
B.
If A didn't work, A failed.
No.
Right.
It was no
So
way.
I go to
Back it
plan
up.
B. If plan B don't work, I go to plan C. If plan C don't work, I take plan A and plan B and combine it, or plan B and plan C and combine it.
Right.
So what I'm saying is we're saying the same thing, but our perspective and our lens is a
It's
little bit different.
Yeah.
So that's the way my parents taught me to look at it. Okay, well, what you gonna do?
Yeah,
What are you
because
gonna do now?
Failure for me is I can't do anything about it.
But that's not you. So
Yeah.
why are you already catastrophizing? What's gonna happen? It hasn't happened yet. You got to stay in the moment. You got to bring yourself back to
See, I'm not in the moment. I don't do it. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, but I'm just saying. I'm saying though, and I'm sorry, Miss Lori. We don't mean to
Sorry,
hijack
Lord.
the conversation,
I'm
but-
learning from this. I'm taking all this in, believe me.
So I'm just saying. So I'm saying to you, this time in your life is challenging you to think differently about your future. So I'm done with that. With that, I will let somebody else answer.
So, Lori, I'm going to ask you the F question about failure. Again, you can only hit it from your perspective. What is it? What does it mean to you? What does it look like? All of that.
Well, failure, I'm going to be honest, is not part of my vocabulary. It's just not. I don't like
Talk about that.
I really don't. And I guess I've just always been raised I've always been raised about the belief of path. What is your path for you? And knowing that at some point you're going to reach a fork in the road. You may have to go left, you may have to go right. I don't like the word failure, can't stand it. Whenever someone says to me, oh, well, you failed or something. No, I didn't fail. Sometimes it's I'm pausing or I'm taking a different path. So I just don't believe in the word. I know it's part of the English vocabulary, but it's just not a word that I internalize. It has such a negative interpretation. And I don't believe that our lives are meant to be failed. I just don't like that. It is simply about path, taking this path. You may reach that fork. You may have to go right or left. That's what it is for me. It's simply about what is the path. But to Marty's point, and as Sam is also realizing, it's also about stopping, taking in the moment. That is what I'm doing more of. Like I will just go, you know what? I don't feel like doing anything today. And when I have those days, I celebrate them because I don't always do that. So I just simply learn to decompress more. But I refuse to accept failure as part of my vocabulary. I just do. And
it's funny because Lori and Sam and Marty, we've all approached failure differently and the same. I hope, Sam, you can hear the same parts of it.
Yeah.
I am like, I'm a hybrid between Lori and Marty. My parents taught me to fail. I think fail has, like Lori, a horrible connotation. I think it is a bad word. I think it is worse than any cuss word that you could think of. That is why there's books. There's a great book, Sammy. I'm going to get it for you. It's called Failing Forward. Failing, if we're going to use the word failing, all it is information.
I ain't got time to read no book, but go ahead.
Girl, it's only like 75 pages. It's
Listen, see if it's on audio.
Sam don't want to do her work.
You should just
Right, there you go. That's the word, Sammy. But the book is really about how failing gives us information. Like everybody said, it makes you say, okay, that didn't work. New path. That didn't work. That path. It can also make you say, my mother used to be an advisor in college, and she would have people come in and say, well, I want to be a pre-med. And my mother would say, okay, let's lay out all your grades. D in biology, C in chemistry, D in physics. Are you sure you want to be a doctor? We need to do some real evaluation. So failure, if we're going to use that word, is just gathering information. There is no such thing. It's failing. If we're in the way that you see it, Sammy, the way that Marty's saying it and Lori's saying it, I'm saying it, it's simply information, divert, do this different, do that different, or don't do it at all. But it's a terrible word, because if you get stuck on the word failure, at least for me, it would mean I wouldn't try. Because I'm not into cutting. And so if I think I might fail at something, that's the same as, the students that I would have would cut themselves. I'm not into that. So I wouldn't try. So I would tell anybody, LOL, anybody listening, get the word failure out of your mind and just try new things. What is the worst that could happen? If you don't do good at something, is it going to kill you? Now, I'm not talking about playing Frogger with the cars in real life and try to cross a street, a busy highway. That's dumb. I'm talking about really, if you decided to, at one time I thought I wanted to be an optometrist because I worked my way through school working as an optometry office. Child, I can't pass organic chemistry. I don't know what I was thinking. It was a bad idea. But you know what? My mother helped me pay for the summer classes. I took physics and I took organic chemistry. And let me tell y'all, the devil is real. And it's found in physics and organic chemistry. Guess who did not become an optometrist? Me, because I gathered the information, the data that said maybe not. Right? And that's all it is. So then let's move to 50 and the big thing. So listeners, whether you are Christian or Jewish or Islamic, agnostic, atheist, deist, whatever you call yourself, we still work from a place of faith. A spiritual faith. Some people may be humanistic and have faith only in themselves. So what you believe and how you focus in that belief is what I'm defining as faith for the purpose of this conversation. I am a Christian, and so I'm moving through my path of faith with that as the backbone. You can answer this question, ladies, any way you see fit. And those of you who have your journal out, you can answer this question any way you see fit. So I'm going to start with Marty on this one. Marty, because I wrote it down when you were talking before earlier. Faith in 50. Any way you want to hit it.
Faith is experiencing life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, and all the things in between, and being able to see where God showed up in my life. And so that's what faith is for me. Like I said, I alluded to earlier, I've had some specific life situations where I know it had to be the Lord. I experienced a serious illness, had a heart attack at the age of 43, didn't think I was going to make it, and then had another. It was just a series of things the year that my dad died. It was just like a whole series of things that happened to me that I could not have imagined. And so I say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Right.
This is why I feel like I must include him. I have to include him. He is the giver and the taker. He's the great physician. He's all those wonderful things to me. And so I have to lean on him and allow him to order my steps so that I don't get out of line with what he needs me to do. I think the problem comes when we get out of line with what he wants us to do. And we start inserting our own stuff in it, like, Lord, like he needs our help. He doesn't need our help. So my faith, I have learned to trust him, and I've had to learn to give up that control and that need to control every single thing in my life, because I don't want to be hurt. We're going to experience hurt in our lives. It's a natural part of life. We won't know the good times if we don't have some bad times. So my faith is in the one that sees the panoramic view, because I can only see the snapshot. And if I try to hold and have control over everything, it will drive me insane. I will be stressed out. I will be depressed, and everything else that goes along that. And so in order to keep myself on an even keel, particularly in these times of COVID, I don't know about how anybody else is dealing, but thank God for faith right now, because I don't know how I would be dealing with the uncertainties of the future if I didn't have my faith. So faith for me is believing that the giver and the taker of life, who I perceive as the God, the triune God, the God of all, the Almighty, has my life in his hands, and he is directing what is going to happen to me, and trusting that he has my best interest at heart, knowing that I don't need to control everything. That's what faith is to me after 50.
Lori?
Wow, my faith is everything to me. It is the reason why I get up and read the scripture every morning. Faith is what gets me through every day. It is when I make a cup of coffee. It's when I go out and I listen to the nature around me. Nature is everything around me, and it's because of my faith in God. It's like when I became older, my faith, it's like wearing glasses. Like in the past, I would wear some fuzzy glasses. I had faith, but it wasn't quite as strong. It's like now, as I'm getting older, my faith is clear. It is crystal clear. And it wasn't like that before. So my faith is what drives me every day. It gives me purpose. Like every day I get up and I just go, okay, Lord, what's my plan for today? What is your purpose? What is your purpose for my life? What is your purpose? What is your purpose? I used to be I got to figure this out. I got to figure this out. I have to do this. I have to do this. Now it's, you're not by yourself. You are equipped and you have him guiding you. I can't explain it a lot of times people will say, well, you're a Christian, but they talk about Christians on TV. I'm like, no. I don't care what you think Christianity is. I know what it is for me. I don't debate my faith. I don't debate any of that with other people. It's such a waste of my time. I know what my faith is to me, and it is everything. It is my being. So it seems to just get stronger each and every day as I'm getting older. So it is everything.
Sammy?
Man.
Say my name.
Sammy.
Say my name. Say my name.
I was going to say yes, Destiny's Child, yes. Faith, 50.
For me, I believe that nothing happens by chance. I believe that God is in control of everything. He knows the beginning, he knows the middle, he knows the end. And I believe that we all have purpose. I love the Lord. My experiences have brought me closer to him. I always ask, who can I help? Just like you, Lori. What do you want me to do today? Especially during this COVID time, at first I really didn't have time to read or to pray, but now I stay on my knees often. I wake up in prayer. I feel the presence of God often in my life. I know that when I pray, he beckons and comes when I call. So my faith has increased. through life experiences, but not only that, by, nothing happening by chance. Everything is ordained by God.
So as a church girl, like I think most of us were, I had a religion, and that religion was Christianity. And as I have explored and lived life, I have had the privilege, like all of you, of meeting God. And that's my faith. So for those of you listening, I'm separating Christianity for a moment for the purpose of you understanding what I'm saying the best that I can explain it. I am convinced that God covers me. I know this to be true because I've experienced so many hurts and so many pains. I have put myself in position to be killed physically. I have been in positions where I should have been dead. And I know that only God could have fixed that situation. So God has built a resume with me. I could not move to the next thing. That's, I asked, were you afraid? I could not move to the next thing or deal with the last thing outside of faith. And there was a time when I went through my last divorce, and Marty was around for that, and Sam was around for that, and it was horrific because it wasn't the husband, who was terrible, that caused such upheaval in my life. It was the church. And when you're in ministry, and it is the thing that you love, the church, that attacks you, you have to start approaching faith. You've got to learn about the God of your understanding. And Sammy, you don't remember this, but I was in Target one day, and Sammy and I had something in common. We were going through divorce at the same time. And we would have hard days. Someday a day would be hard for me. Someday a day would be hard for Sammy. But I happened to be, when I was going through my divorce at this time, in Norfolk, Virginia, taking care of my grandmother who was dying with Alzheimer's. And she didn't even know who I was. I was just a nice lady. And Sammy, you were having a particularly hard day. I don't know what it was in that day. We know how tiring it gets to go through a divorce. And I was in Target. Sam, you don't even remember what I'm about to say. But that day in Target, I was in tears because Sammy reminded me, without even asking, that I would never be by myself. And out of all the songs, before we started this podcast today, Sammy was talking about saying it and how she felt about her saying, because she sung a solo today, y'all, at LOL, and she did a great job. You broke in out of all the songs that you could sing. She didn't sing Great Is Thy Faithfulness. She didn't sing a hit song, like For Every Mountain. We were going through, and you were particularly sad that day, Sammy, and you were crying. And you began to sing, Yes, Jesus Loves Me. A basic, right, okay?
Wow.
Yeah. Basic child song. You just started to sing through your pain. Yes, Jesus loves me. Girl, that right there, okay, that right there reminded me we were little girls and we were taught the basic. Yes, Jesus loves me, for the Bible tells me so. That's all we had, and that's all you had. And it seems that the four ladies that are in this conversation, we can end right here with 50. What 50 is all about, it's about a whole lot of stuff. But for the ladies on this podcast speaking today, without faith and without believing a God loves us and wants better for us, we wouldn't even be able to have a conversation with you about 50. So I'm going to thank you, ladies, for talking with me. Don't hang up, because I'm going to end the show, and then we will end separately. Ladies, LOL audience, I'm going to invite you to Live Out Loud. Subscribe to the podcast. If you would like, email me. It's in the podcast information. I would be happy to talk with you, chat with you. You can send me ideas. And in the words of Dolly Parton, find out who you are and do it on purpose.